Okay, so this video is going to cover Assessment 3B. So when you're looking at all the assessments in this unit, once again, you would go to your Assessment tab and you would be looking here. So we're going to cover, this video is going to cover Part B of this structured activity for Assessment 3. So scrolling down here, we've got Part B. And you can see the instructions here. And so for this, you're going to build on the self-assessment plan you would have done for Part A, and you would have identified 2 areas of improvement for quality area 3 and 5. So this is your quality improvement plan. And for this one, you need to list 5 strengths for each quality area and 2 key improvements, and include exceeding themes only if applicable. So you're linking your strengths and improvements to your self-assessment findings. So you're going to sort of carry those self-assessment findings over to here. So if you click here, that's the instructions, but we're going to click straight into here because this is the template that you need to complete and upload to Moodle. So this is the template you need to complete and upload to Moodle. So for this one, you're going to be filling in this page here with your service details. So you just put your service name, don't worry about approval number, primary contacts at the service, just the location, the physical location, who the nominated supervisor is, who the approved provider is. You don't need to put the phone numbers or anything in here. You can just put 000 in just to, fill that out. And you can just list the name of the educational leader. And next you want to just put your opening hours, open and closing hours here, and any additional information about your service. So, how are children grouped? Are they all, 3 to 5s together? Have you got, how are your rooms set up? And for this one, we don't need to do quality area 1 because remember, we're focusing on quality areas 3 and 5. So we're going to scroll down and find quality area 3. So here we are. So this quality standard focuses on the physical environment. So we worked out that in the first one. I'm going to make that a bit smaller so you can see it in the screen. And these should be familiar to you because you would have looked at these in depth for Assessment 3A. So you know what fit for purpose means because you've looked at the regulation that matches that element. So you've got your element and standards here. And remember, we're looking for 5 strengths. So you're just scrolling down here because this is just all information. There's nothing you really need to fill in here, but it just tells you what regulation it's linked to and how that's associated with what element in the National Quality Standard. So this is where you're going to list 5 strengths. So it might be a good idea, so we can see that you've listed 5 strengths, to number them. So you've got 1, 2, and so on. So you're going to summarise your first strengths. Remember, you can use your self-assessment that you did for Assessment 3A to build on those strengths and rewrite the strengths that you found here. So for example, your indoor and outdoor spaces in relation to 3.1.1 are zoned for distinct areas, like there's some areas for quiet reflection, there's sensory exploration over the other side, there's active movement that's away from the quiet area, and the layout is designed for children's emerging interests and maybe the dynamics of the group. You've got maybe a large group of really boisterous boys that like to build, so the space is fit for purpose because there's a section carved out in the room for large box construction or something like that. Or maybe your strength is related to quality area 3.2.3 or something like that, where you've got your resources and your environmental sustainability. You've got lots of open-ended natural play. You've got a loose parts area. The program caters to children's emerging interest in worm farms, and you're teaching children about environmental responsibilities. Like, you haven't just got the worm farm set up, you're actually talking to children about why the worm farm would be important for sustainability. They would be things you would be writing here as examples of strengths. So then you would be putting your exceeding themes here if applicable. So you would only need them if you have identified themes that are exceeding. So if you do have all those things that you've talked about in your strengths and you do think they're exceeding, put them in here. So describe how the practices are embedded. So usually it is going to be an exceeding theme if it's just not a one-off. Like if you've got a worm farm because you're just thinking, okay, we're going to do sustainability this term. That's not exceeding. It needs to be something embedded in your service operations. And then you're doing that for each of 3.2. And then you've got key improvements. So remember when you looked at the actual assessment requirements, so if you go here, you needed to list 5 strengths for each quality area and 2 key improvements. This is where you're going to put your key improvements. So you need 2 of these. So let's do an example together to show you what I mean. So you're identifying the standard or element. So let's say 3.1.1. And maybe the issue you identified was there was, you know, the outdoor environment maybe lacked shade or something. So no shade or minimal shade. Shaded areas in outdoors, something like that. Outdoors for children to play in summer. So what outcomes or goals would you seek? So obviously to be increase shaded areas. And then you've got to identify the priority. Is it low, medium or high? And I would say if it's the middle of summer, it would be high. And then the steps you might take, and it won't be you yourself, it would be something you'd be discussing with your nominated supervisor, because you would need quotes for shade cloths, for example. And the success measure is basically that this is done and that the outdoor play can be maintained and there's no heat restrictions. Because if you had minimal shaded areas, you know, on peak hot days, children might not be able to play outside for too long, but the success measure is now we can, because we've got these shaded areas. So you would say, so maybe the success measure is children can play and obviously you'd put other steps like install shade cloths after you've got a quote for shade cloths and all that kind of stuff. And by when, it might be end of year, something like that. And then your progress notes would be, you know, waiting for quotes or something like that. So, and the reason you would have this in your quality improvement plan is because when you have a visit by the authorised officer who comes to visit the service, they might go, well, we can see that this service has identified this as an improvement and they're actioning it. So this is what they want to see. They want to see that your service is actioning something that, you know, to increase quality. So that's an example of, you know, how to do that. So then you're going down and doing exactly the same thing for quality area 5. So here we are at quality area 5, and you're listing your strengths, and remember it has to be 5 strengths. So like I said, number them. And an example of a strength might be, let's say for 5.1.2, you might go children's rights and dignity are upheld, because we do discreet nappy changes. We don't walk up behind children and pull their nappies back and go, who's got poos? We do it very discreetly to protect their dignity. Things like that. Or we don't use shaming or exclusionary discipline practices. We've moved away from time out. We've looked at Stuart Shanker's approach to self-regulation, and we're inputting that. So these are kind of strengths you would list here. Once again, if you've got exceeding themes, put them in here. And then, like I said, you need 2. We need 2 areas for improvement, and just fill it out like I showed you for the previous one, where you identified what issue, what goal do you seek, what the priority is, how will you get this done, so the steps, and then the measure, success measure is what does that outcome look like? What are we seeking here? How should that look in real life? And then by when, and your progress notes. As I said, the authorised officer would be looking at this very closely and seeing that you are working on these areas, that not only are you meeting them, but you're looking to improve them. So even if you are meeting the quality area that you're listing here for improvement, it just shows that you want to go above meeting. You want to take that a step further. So when you've completed your 5 strengths and your 2 areas of improvement, because they're your main things that you need to fill out, you're saving this document and you're uploading it to Moodle for marking.